The worst sound you can hear on a deserted road at midnight isn't an engine backfiring. It's your engine going completely silent. This happened back in 2005. I was 18, living in a small rural town in Texas, where the nearest real city was over an hour away. I was scraping by at a local community college because that's all my family could manage. One of my close friends from high school had moved to San Antonio for college. He was sharing a small apartment just outside the city with a roommate, and his girlfriend crashed there most weekends too. Since the drive was only about 90 minutes, I visited him constantly. He invited me to come stay over one weekend, so I hopped in my old 1995 Toyota pickup. Let me be honest, that truck was falling apart. The gas gauge hadn't worked in years. I had to track my mileage manually, resetting the trip odometer every time I filled up. I took Route 90, which ran straight from my town to San Antonio. I hit the road around 3 in the afternoon on a Friday. No traffic at all. I made it to his place at a decent hour. His girlfriend wasn't arriving until the next day, so that night we were going out. We stopped at a liquor store and drank at his apartment with his roommate for a while. Then the three of us headed to a dive bar that didn't check IDs too carefully. That was basically our whole night. We got back to their apartment around 2 in the morning after grabbing some food. I crashed on the couch. The next day started out similar, but then things got tense. Andrew and his girlfriend were fighting all day, as they both drank more that evening. She started yelling at him in front of me. It became incredibly awkward. Have you ever been trapped in someone else's argument with no way to leave? I hadn't drunk much that day because I was already uncomfortable staying there with her around. Eventually, I decided I'd just drive home. I said my goodbyes and hit the road. It was very late, probably midnight, maybe a little earlier. Route 90 was completely deserted at that hour, so I was pushing my truck as fast as it could go. Then suddenly, the engine started stuttering. My stomach dropped. I realized I had forgotten to fill the tank. I slowed down, but it was too late. The engine died. I coasted to the shoulder and tried restarting it a few times. Nothing. I pulled up my cell phone, which was just as unreliable as my truck. No signal, not even one bar. I couldn't call anyone. All I could do was turn on my hazard lights and pray a good Samaritan would come by. You would not believe how long I sat there before seeing headlights. I waved my arms as the car approached, but it flew right past me, ignoring me completely. This happened again about 10 minutes later. I started feeling hopeless. Maybe I should just sleep in my truck until sunrise and get help then. So that's what I decided to do. I got back inside, took the key out to save the battery, and angled my seat back to try to rest. I heard the occasional car zoom past, maybe once every 10 minutes, but waving people down in the dark felt pointless. It seemed sketchy for both me and the drivers. I was just starting to drift off when a car door closing behind me jolted me awake. I looked in my rearview mirror. A vehicle had pulled up behind me with its headlights off. I turned around to get a better look. It was a large pickup truck, but I couldn't see anyone inside it or standing outside it. Maybe someone had pulled over to help. I got out and called out, "Hello?" No response. I walked closer to the truck just to confirm no one was inside. Then I walked back to my car. This was strange. I looked toward the trees lining the road. Maybe someone was stepping into the woods. I got back inside my car and locked the door. This was getting too weird. Suddenly, there was a tap at my window. I jumped. A man was standing there, looking down at me through the glass, smiling. I didn't move yet. He said, "Hey there, friend. Need some help?" I rolled the window down, just a crack, and said, "Yeah, I ran out of gas." The man said, "Well, that's a problem. Step out and give me a hand with something real quick." When he said that, I thought he meant help him grab a gas can to fill my tank. So I stepped out and shut my door, expecting him to lead me to his truck. But he just stood there. He was much taller than me, still smiling. Then he said, "I need you to empty your pockets, please." It took me a second to process what he meant. I was a broke college student driving a junk truck. I wasn't about to let him take the only cash and my phone. I ran for the trees. I'm small, but fast. I glanced back and saw him chasing me. Once I made it into the woods, I zigzagged wildly until I thought I'd lost him. Then I crouched behind a large tree to catch my breath. Then I heard him getting closer. I held my breath. I heard him say out loud, "I'll kill you, you worthless piece of trash." I don't know if he was just venting or if he wanted me to hear it. Either way, I was too terrified to move. Even after I heard his footsteps fade away, I stayed frozen. In fact, I remained hidden behind that tree until dawn. When the sun finally came up, I walked back to the highway. The pickup truck was gone. But my truck's doors were both wide open. I found my glove compartment had been ransacked. Anything even slightly valuable was gone. My flannel hoodie had also been taken, and I'm sure it had something in the pocket. Eventually, I flagged down a good Samaritan who gave me a ride to the nearest gas station. I bought a fuel can, filled it with gas, and he brought me back to my car. I put just enough fuel in to drive to the station and fill up completely. Then I went straight home. That night taught me something I'll never forget. There are dangerous people out there who will try to exploit you when you're at your most vulnerable. But there are also good people, like the man who finally stopped to help. The second story comes from a woman named Catherine. When she was 18, she admits she was immature and naive. She was the kind of driver who honked impatiently and cut people off. Looking back, she knows it was reckless. That said, she drove constantly for someone her age. She went to school 5 hours from home. No matter what day she traveled, traffic always got terrible the closer she got to her hometown. So during breaks, she would drive at night to avoid the congestion. What normally took 4 or 5 hours became a 3-hour drive. It was the start of winter break. The fall semester had just ended. All her friends left for home on the same day, but she waited until late at night to head out because she hated traffic that much. She drove a Mazda 3 that she absolutely abused. And she admits she was known for running her tank nearly empty constantly. People would comment on it whenever they rode with her. She would always assure them the car still had at least 30 miles left even after the needle hit E. She found out that night she was wrong. She was only about an hour into her drive on the interstate. The needle was on E, and she was pushing her luck, waiting for a gas station sign instead of looking one up on her phone. Then the car started making strange noises and jerking. That's when she realized she had actually run the tank dry this time. She took the first exit ramp, hoping it would lead straight to a gas station. But this exit was dark. No streetlights, just woods on both sides. She was afraid to slow down because she didn't know if she had enough fuel left to reach a station. She blew through the stop sign at the end of the ramp and made a sharp turn onto another dark road surrounded by trees. She was in trouble. The car eventually stopped, and the engine died. Things got worse when she pulled out her phone. No signal. Her carrier had terrible reception anywhere, far from a major city. She tried calling 911 because she stupidly thought emergency calls worked even without reception. Of course, it didn't connect. She was terrified. She turned on her hazard lights and just waited for someone to pass by. It was a long time before she saw headlights approaching. When she did, she flashed her own lights at them. The car passed her, made a U-turn, and pulled onto the grass behind her. She didn't know who was getting out of that car. She was an 18-year-old girl alone. She cracked her window down just a little as a man approached. She told him she needed help. She had run out of gas. He offered to give her a ride to the nearest station. He was balding, wore glasses, and seemed trustworthy enough. She didn't have any other options, so she accepted. She got out, locked her car doors, and followed him to his vehicle. It was a black Honda, probably around 2010. The inside smelled strange. She couldn't identify the odor. He made a U-turn and started driving in the direction he had been going before. He made small talk, asking where she was from, and basic questions. She was honest that she was driving home from school. He said he lived in the area and that they didn't get many out-of-towners getting off the interstate for this quiet little town. The route they were taking had no buildings anywhere, just woods on both sides. She asked if he knew of any gas stations. He said, "Yeah, just a little further up the road." Then she started hearing bumping and thumping coming from the back of the vehicle. It sounded like the trunk. At first, she thought it was just rough road or a loose object bouncing around. He kept talking constantly, like he wouldn't stop. Finally, they reached a small town area. There were lights and buildings at last, a diner and a few small houses. They came to a red light, the first intersection since she had gotten into his car. They stopped. For the first time there was silence, and then she heard it, the unmistakable sound of someone screaming from the trunk, followed by thumps and bangs. She looked at the man. He looked at her. In a split second, she unbuckled her seatbelt, opened the door, and ran. At the same time, he tried to grab her and pull her back into the car. She heard him get out too. But instead of chasing her, he ran to close his passenger door. Then she heard him floor the gas pedal and speed away down the street. She ran into the diner and caused a scene, asking for help. She used their phone to call 911. Multiple police officers showed up to take her report. Given the gravity of what she was saying, that she had heard someone in the trunk of that car, they needed every detail. They gave her a ride back to her abandoned car so they could include the pickup location in the report. They also helped her get a hold of roadside assistance, which eventually came to fill her tank. That was the scariest night of her life. She was shaken to her core for the entire rest of the drive home. She hopes they found that man. She hopes whoever was in that trunk is still alive today. For all she knows, that man could have been bringing her to his house or somewhere worse. She was just lucky she got a chance to escape at that red light.